Hello, everyone, and welcome along to a Cove webinar with myself, Finn Anderson from Enable here, one of our senior sales executives, and one of my very close and friendly partners, Dave Brown from CSCM. So I believe there's a few people in the background. I appreciate you all coming along today and joining the call. If you do have any questions, please pop them in the chat. We've got my colleague Jordan from the marketing team able to respond to them. And if we need to highlight any of them, we will. But as I say, the goal of today is to take a little bit of time to chat with Dave on his journey with Enable, but more importantly, with our product called Cove Data Protection, our backup system. And we'd love just to go through that today in the next 30 minutes. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dave. And Dave, first question I have for you today is to tell me a little bit about yourself and your journey in IT in general.
The days of IT. So hi, I'm Dave Brown. I'm Director of Cloud Services at CSCM. I've been in the industry for over 20 years now. I've got a couple of grey hairs, may not look like it, but I started my life off in IT, little corner shop down in the village, helping someone out do some basic IT. And then as soon as I got my driving license, they started sending me around to offices around the West Midlands and fixing computers. And I think we were looking at Windows 95 and 98 back then. So we're going back a few years. Then I kind of went to university and then I got a real job. So I started working for an intellectual property firm, and I was working in the on-site IT there. So I was doing kind of first line, second line. I was there for a couple of years. And then I joined CSCM. So I've been at CSCM now for 15 years. CSCM started off, as a very small break fix IT company. And now we're a fully fledged MSP. So I've been with the organisation since it was very small, and we're now 31 employees. So the journey at CSCM has been interesting and very exciting at times. Over the years, we've grown, we've taken on some really great clients, and the products and services that we offer have evolved hugely. The industry is quite cutthroat and it's quite busy. There's a lot going on. We're all really rushed off our feet, and we've had to change what we do over the years. We started off just providing support, and then we quickly moved into providing kind of managed services. So it's like managed firewalls, managed AV. Then we started going into kind of like cloud services, hosted email, hosted desktop, and then more recently we've started doing managed print and telephony and security services. I never thought we'd be selling photocopiers. However, everything evolves around IT. So we might as well be that one port of call for our customer base. So they've got one call to make to do anything.
Got ya. And I have to go back one quick question just to ask you. Did you ever get a speeding ticket? And who paid the speeding ticket when you first started driving about?
So I'm touching wood here, but to date, I haven't had one. Oh, they're probably guaranteed now. That's going to go out the window, isn't it?
You've absolutely screwed yourself now. Yeah, that's definitely going to happen. So good luck with it. Going back obviously to CSCM then, more on the sort of day-to-day, how does that look in terms of your own role, Dave? And then more into when it comes to your current tech stack, what kind of products are you using to service the customers at the moment? So we could hear around those kind of two key parts.
Okay, so on a day-to-day basis, the role is very varied. We're still a small organisation. We have to wear a lot of hats. So I'm responsible for the delivery of our cloud services and managed services across our customer base. And I head up the technical innovation in the organisation. I've got a team of 3 people that directly report to me, and then I work with the broader technical team to help deliver services to our customers. Some of the highlights, I suppose, from the last week, I've been working with one organisation, getting them prepared for Cyber Essentials and their audit. We've also been looking at the next iteration of our private cloud solution. So planning for that, CapEx expenditure for that and upgrades. And then last week I was actually onboarding a new customer with one of my team members and just kind of doing a bit of just showing them how we go about doing that and getting to cut their teeth on a new customer, I suppose. So yeah, it's been good. From a technology stack, we decided really early on. So not long after I joined, we kind of standardized on-prem stuff. So we had like one application, like one AV provider or one backup provider we'd have on site, but then we had lots of other bits that were a bit bitty all over the place. So we decided to just consolidate everything all in one place. And Enable was actually where we did that. We go back to the days of Enable where it's called Hound Dog. So I don't know if many people are even going to have heard of Hound Dog. So yeah, we started out there using what is known as Insight now. And then we kind of outgrew Insight. We were doing some automation in that. And then, we had we've utilizing the backup in there. And then we decided actually we needed to get a bit more automation in our lives, and we moved to N-Central. Yeah. And this was just before the two companies all kind of came under one umbrella. So when it became SolarWinds MSP. So yeah, we've really tried to consolidate our stack. So and primarily it's around Enable. Don't mean to sound like I'm flogging this at all, but it's
big flag of Enable in the background.
Yeah. And I think we've been very fortunate. We've built a strategic partnership with Enable, and it's allowed us to thrive as a business. So
for sure. You live up to my theory as well. So I've worked in the business now coming up to 3 years, and every time I've met somebody who I've partnered with that uses Hound Dog, I've always gotten on really well. And of course, me and you, Dave, we've got a good relationship. So you also reinforce that statement that I have in my brain about Hound Dog users.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Good to hear. Well, look, I appreciate we jumped in today as well. We want to obviously go and focus on the backup side of things for Cove. So in that space, obviously you've been using Cove for a long time now, but what were you using before Cove?
Life before was a whole lot of fun. We started providing so when everything was on-prem, it was all ArcServe, and that worked great for USB backups and stuff. But then we decided actually we want to start providing this as a managed service. So we got on really early with providing managed services. I think we were probably doing this in like 2012, I think. So we've been doing it a long time now, but we were using StorageCraft, so Shadow Protect and Image Manager to get the backups off site. So we bought a load of infrastructure and put it in our office in Albury, and that was the cloud in Albury. So all those backups were being replicated over these ADSL2 lines, and it worked. Like, people didn't have so much data back then, and we did have challenges because the internet connections were shoddy back then, and when you're trying to replicate 100 gig over an ADSL2 connection, it's not really going to be great. Oh, have you lost me?
No, still here. All good.
Okay, sorry, I've lost myself, so I can't see. And if you can still see me, we'll carry on. Yeah, so we had these ADSL2 services which were challenging, and getting the backups off site was hard work. We then decided to move to ArcServe, and we procured that through Enable, so as part of our partnership then. So we were using that for a few years, and but we were getting real growth pains with that. The system worked well. We had very good restoration, but it was starting to get really complicated and cumbersome. The hardware we were buying in the office was getting big. We were getting more and more hardware in the offices. We had 2 racks of like backup hardware at one point, so it was getting quite significant. and our internet connection was becoming a bit of an issue. And I think we only had like 100 meg lease line back then. So, and we were spending so much time looking at backups. It was a joke. We had an intern at one point, and for the year he was doing like a sandwich year at university, so his sandwich course. And in that year, he spent pretty much 90% of his time looking at backup related problems. He was a very sad man by the end of it. I think he kind of used to see the back of it. Yeah. So yeah, we needed to, and the other thing is when the backups went wrong, you know, we were if we needed to reseed a backup, we'd have to go to the customer site and put it on a USB drive and then bring it back. Now we've got customers all over the place. We've had a long-standing customer who's based in St Ives in Cornwall. It's not really down the road to go and take a USB drive. It's a 10, 11 hour round trip. And then you've still got to get the data on the USB drive. So yeah, not ideal.
So that's really good insight into what you're using in terms of storage, craft, and backup. And I think the next sort of question was, I guess, what stemmed or triggered you looking at Cove, and how did Cove come about? Where did you hear about it? What was the situation there?
Something had to give, right? So we were having all these growth pains with the backup solution we had. So I was like, there's got to be something better. We need to not have all this infrastructure that we're managing on a day to day. And I just ended up speaking to Louise, and I went to an Enable event where it would have been a SolarWinds MSP event back in the day, and got talking to the founder of IOServe, I suppose he was, JG, and just got talking to him about it, and I saw how passionate he was about backup, and it was like, geez, he's such a backup nerd. But it was great. It was really refreshing, and then I thought, right, I've got to get in there, and we started having a conversation. But as with all these things, with a fancy new technology, the commercials really were like challenging, because we had such a good deal with ArcServe. We were like, trying to drag it over the line commercially was a bit of a challenge, but because we've got this, we just worked with you guys to make it happen.
With the commercial side of things, I think with Cove, because it's so different to the rest of the market, and that's probably what you saw with enthusiasm with JG and the cloud first architecture, and then our pricing format of charging per device and include storage with that device, is first of all, a completely different concept. When you think about the commercials, you're so used to being charged per gigabyte. You're probably selling in that model as well, where you're charging per gigabyte. So it's not only a challenge on a commercial standpoint, it's a challenge on how you sell the service as well. So did you have to change from that perspective when you moved to Cove?
We didn't really. So the cost, we had different pricing per VM and things like that, and most of our workloads were VMs, right? So we don't actually sell Cove based on a per gigabyte usage. We don't. We've been very upfront with our customers, and we've yes, there have been some over usage in the past, but we try to keep it simple for them to understand, because when you start going into the fractions of gigabytes that people are paying for, they're just like, come on, I just want to see a simple invoice. I really don't want to have all this rubbish. They want to know what they're paying each month, and we just make it simple for them.
100%.
So
I think that's
So that's what we had to try and do, right? These are the conversations we were having with you to try and make that happen.
And this is probably one of the key advantages I see when you move to Cove is predictable cost, predictable revenue. You can almost standardize across your customer base, because you now know, okay, every month, this is how much it's going to cost me as the MSP for the product, because we are charged per device and include storage in that device. And as I say, coming back to this thing of being a bit different to the market with a cloud first architecture, it's also looking at that total cost of ownership. So we often have discussions around something like Veeam, which is a local spun up to the cloud sometimes when you present the commercials, somebody will go, "Oh, well, that's a bit more than what we're used to paying," like you said just now. But when you actually look at the overall cost of, for instance, with Veeam, you have your infrastructure, your storage management. For instance, as well, when you're air gapping for security, you have to pay for more infrastructure there.
Yeah.
So it brings a lot more total cost when comparing, and the consistency is more predictable with both.
Yeah, and you also need some people who can manage that environment, right? So you need to, you've got to have some very clever people to actually manage all that infrastructure and the software behind the scenes. So yeah, now we just hand that off and make it somebody else's problem, and we do the bit that actually provides value to our customers.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. It's good to hear that it's been a good journey so far with it. Now, more importantly, who turned up in the background there? Where I think the viewers need to understand who that is.
Yeah, that's Annika. That's my so I volunteer I volunteer for guide dogs. So Annika is a guide dog mum. So her puppies will go on to help lead the blind. So she's a German Shepherd who's 2.5 years old.
Girl Annika, she's a big Cove fan as well, I heard. Good stuff. So I think we kind of gone on to about Cove and seeing that, but apart from obviously predictable cost that we've mentioned, what were the other features on Cove that really stood out for you when you came across the product when comparing to your old product, StorageCraft?
So when we took it on, obviously Cove was a lot more simplistic. It didn't have as many bells and whistles as it does now, and reporting was fairly limited. However, the bit that really sold it was the simplicity. You know, it had such a small footprint. It didn't require SQL servers on all your systems to manage it. It was just a very small installer. We could deploy it with Event Central. It was a very hands-off approach. So like we deployed it to 300 odd servers and with minimal time involved in that, because we deployed it all, and because all the backups can go straight to the cloud without having any local storage or anything, we didn't even have to worry about all the appliances on site. We dealt with that later on down the line. So then we had this period of time where we were running 2 backup systems. We had the infrastructure on site of the customer, still with ArcServe, but then all the other data, all the Cove data was just going straight to the cloud. So then once we decommissioned ArcServe, we were then able to switch all the appliances, the NAS storage devices, to the local speed vault. Mm-hmm. So that was the bit that took the most time, actually. And the local speed vault is not always necessary, but it's a nice to have. It's like a belts and braces approach that we've always kind of had in when it comes to backup.
Oh yeah, I think and it's still there. Like, it gives you that feature to have it. And the thing that's developed with Cove as well over the last few years is a big focus on cyber resilience as well. So that additional need for those kind of copies, you'll hopefully start to see with the solution, that it's maybe not a necessity anymore, but it's still a nice to have as well. So my general manager, Chris Groot, he always teaches me 3 things that we need to mention when I'm talking about Cove, and we've kind of covered some of them today, but one of those key things he mentions is on efficiency. So due to the design of Cove, and this is why I have my enthusiasm for Cove, is we back up on the operating system, but are still able to give image recovery. And what that really means is we're highly efficient backups. So we move around 60% less data than your average vendor. I wondered, from your point of view, Dave, did you see an impact when moving across on the efficiency, and how did that impact your customers and the decisions you've made on backup?
Well, so from an efficiency perspective, we had some backups that would run all night with ArcServe, and then we moved to Cove, and then we had backups which would last like half an hour, if that. So and then the internet connections were not necessarily a problem anymore, because we were pushing that little data. It really didn't make that much of an issue. It didn't cause any problems. So we never had any issues in regards to having to reseed backups. Well, that just disappeared overnight. We were like, we had so much more time on our hands, because we weren't going around and driving around in vans and going collecting backups and sorting them out. So it was a bit of a surprise. I wasn't quite ready for it. Like, I knew it was better because I did my proof of concept. Like, we did a proof of concept with a server that was 1.5 terabytes, and we did a restore. We did a side-by-side restore of it, and Cove just wiped the floor with it. I think with ArcServe, it took like 2 days, and with Cove coming over the internet, it did it overnight. So we were just totally blown away with that, which was a bit ridiculous. So yeah, it was a game changer in that sense for us at the time, because we just didn't have the levels of connectivity in our customer sites. Not a problem now because everyone has like a 500 meg lease line.
Yeah, true. Very true. We still have time to time. Like, I obviously work with you guys in the UK, but we've got South African partners as well. Sometimes there's still face those issues. So we'll still see that time to time. So moving on now, I think just onto more on day-to-day life again, operational. I love how you said earlier about one of your colleagues spending 90% of his day doing backup, and he was a broken man, as you described. Brilliant way of describing. First of all, that's the first question before we get into more on that. How does his life change? What was his, see a happier man?
Well, so he was doing a year internship with us, right? So he then went back to university for another year, and surprisingly, he came back. You know, I was shocked, but fair play to him. He came back, and he was just as shocked as everyone else. I think he came back, and like his job role was completely different because he didn't have to touch backups. He was then able to, craft his technical skills, and now he's moved on to being, a very successful field engineer, and he's been with the organisation for since 2018, so on a full-time basis. So it's been really good. It's allowed him to flourish.
Great to hear. Great to hear he's not a broken man as well nowadays. I do think that's a good perspective in the sense of it's, as a solution, also very easy to manage and use. I know I'm not the most technical guy. I'm based in sales team. No, surprisingly not. But I can still do a file and folder recovery on it, simple things like that. But it's an easy management side of solution. And did you see more an impact on the support side of tickets? Was there a reduction in those kind of things?
Yeah, there was. Yeah. So from a support perspective, we don't really have any support from a backup perspective these days. We've had over the years, don't be wrong, there have been problems. We've had issues with database growth, the local database for the Cove product. And this has partly been down to workload. So certain types of workload had some issues, and they were primarily Citrix systems where they had lots of user profiles accessing servers. And that was, as part of, I suppose, us learning, and as things move on in the technology space, things change, and some of the changes that happened within Citrix impacted how the backup functioned. So, we had to learn that and work with you guys to come up with a solution for it, which we did. So it's been, but other than that, we've not really had any issues or anything to kind of concern ourselves with. The main support issues we get backup related now are like a hard drive might fail in a NAS. So that's not the backup's problem. That's just reality, right? Hardware fails, you need to go and replace it. But then we don't have to do anything. We just go out to site, replace the drive, and that's it. The other headache, I suppose, out of all this stuff is on and offboarding. We've got probably, I think, about 3,500 users in Cove for 365 backup. And some of our customers have high churn people, employees in the organization. So like the on and offboarding is really critical because, you're paying per user. And if they've got, most people these days, we're backing up OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams. We need to be mindful of the retention of that and making sure that we're offboarding people correctly. So they're the kind of things, they're the only kind of things we have to really worry ourselves with now, which is really nice.
Great stuff. Great to hear. Hopefully it's always nice to hear we reduce that kind of thing and make less of an impact on a business. conscious of time, we only got a few minutes left. So one or two last questions. What's next for CSCM? What's next for you, Dave, as well? Maybe is a good question.
I think from CSCM's perspective, we need to really focus on automation and getting more out of what we have. So streamlining the platforms and services that we have, putting some efficiencies in place with, how we're collecting information, how we're billing people, and then also, making use of all of those great tools that are out there, from an AI perspective. We're not there at the moment. We're doing research and we're working our way, dipping our toe in the water, I suppose, with it to try and kind of understand where it's going to be relevant. Where do we want to focus our time? Where do we want to provide that kind of that friendly face? Because we're very much in front of our customers. We're regularly visiting them, and that's one of the things they probably like. Even if they're in the southwest of England, we're still going and seeing them and saying hello and checking in. So we don't want to withdraw ourselves from that too much. So there's like a balance to strike with all these things with technology. And then I think really, we're all about the business has grown quite a bit this year. We've taken on a few new really good customers. So we want to get those guys bedded in and then look at some further growth.
Mm-hmm. I think you hit the point as well where I'm seeing most focus AI and cybersecurity. That seems to be coming up every conversation I'm having at the moment. So
yeah, cybersecurity is a big one. We've been on, again, many iterations of security products, and we're now embracing the MDR approach to security. We've probably got about 10% of our estate in there now. So yeah, we're still fairly early on, but we're now seeing customers have got an appetite for it, and we've got a way of really marketing it to them and getting them on board with the reasons why you need it. So we're doing regular catch-ups with them and going through all of it's basically blurb to the customer. They don't really care what it is. They just want to know they're protected, but we're there interpreting it for them.
Ironically, the headlines are certainly helping the MSP world nowadays with Co-op and Marks and Spencer's from that. Okay, last question to wrap up. And I always want to leave on a fun question. So being a good ginger that I am, I want to know, because we're talking about Cove, when was the last time you were sunburned and what fat did you use on holiday?
Wow. When was the last time I was sunburned? It was probably when I was climbing a rather large hill in British Columbia in Canada. So, that was the last time. Looking through a hot spring. So that was probably the last time. That was a couple of years ago now.
And you factor 50, factor 30, factor 20? Well,
I'm bad. I don't necessarily apply sunscreen like I probably should. So I'm usually a 30.
Good solid 30. I try and be 30, but I'm usually a 50.
You've got to be factor 100, haven't you?
Yeah. There's no such thing. We'll put two 50s together. Maybe that. Brilliant, Dave. Well, look, I really appreciate your time today, Dave, and a great insight into how you guys have been on a journey with Backup and Cove and meeting JG. And of course, speaking about lovely Louise, who is part of my account team with me, introducing you to Cove originally. So great to hear that. I believe if anybody is still on the call, my marketing colleague Jordan is just going to be running a poll. And then after this, we'll obviously provide the recording on and follow up with any resources that Jordan has as well for you guys. But for everybody that's come along, thank you very much. But most of all, thank you very much to Dave himself for coming along and doing the interview with us.
Thanks for having me, Finn. Much appreciated.
Cheers.